Bombshell claims from a juror at the Corrine Brown corruption trial in an exclusive interview with the I-Team.
And reaction from Brown and her attorney, also in exclusive interviews with News4 Jax, as they told me this afternoon they are disturbed by what this juror is saying, and it deepens their belief Brown did not get a fair trial. The I-Team investigator Lindsay Gardner sat down with that juror today and is joining us with her story.
Well, Tom and Mary, juror number 3 is asking us to conceal her identity because of possible backlash. She is worried that people will be mad at her on both sides. On the one hand, originally for voting Brown innocent on all but one tax charge, and on the other, people being mad at her for changing her mind. She tells me the only reason she's coming forward tonight is to set the record straight because she feels everyone is entitled to a fair trial, an impartial jury, and honest deliberations. This Jacksonville mother tells me she's losing sleep at night because of what juror number 8 said about juror 13 to the court that led to him getting kicked off the trial, a move that she says changed everything.
He said, the reason I voted not guilty is because before I came here, the Holy Spirit told me that she was not guilty, and I still don't think she's guilty, you know, and everybody started getting mad, like, well, you have to base it off the evidence and what's in front of you, and he said, I did.
Juror number 3 sitting down with the I-Team to explain that she, along with juror 13, both thought at first Corrine Brown was mostly innocent.
I do feel like there's a lot of manipulation. The people that voted not guilty, I feel like there was a couple of comments like we didn't understand what was going on. I have headaches, a lot of complaining. I have headaches, you know, I'm really upset. Somebody said they're gonna jump out the window and commit suicide. You know, just a lot
Because you were holding out for not guilty?
Mm-hmm.
So they were frustrated with you and juror 13?
Yes.
How did that make you feel?
I felt really overwhelmed because I wanted a chance to look at the evidence myself.
The next morning, the judge announcing an alternate with no explanation as to why juror 13 was removed.
Some people were speculating, you know, what happened to 13 and was he going to be in contempt? So at that point, I kind of felt like they knew something, because why would he be in contempt? What did he do wrong?
Did that intimidate you?
Yeah, it did, because at that point I felt like there was kind of like no free speech, or that there was always going to be somebody that would run and tell something if you said the wrong thing or didn't agree because they didn't like what you said. I asked them, I just stopped and I said, how come y'all didn't get rid of me too? And they're like, oh, no, 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 what do you mean? What are you talking about? I don't think you could just get kicked, you can kick somebody off the jury. Maybe number 13 went to the judge himself. And, you know, that didn't make any sense to me.
She says even juror number 8 acted shocked that 13 had been removed. Only after the trial did she learn it was 8 that set everything into motion. She says it was that manipulation and confusion that forced her to tears, even fear. Why were you crying?
Because I knew something happened. I knew something tricky and shiesty had happened, but I didn't know what, because we're not allowed to look. And I just felt manipulated. I felt like some people feel like they can take the law into their own hands and they can force other people to do what they want. And in this situation, she was so frustrated that she could not convict Corrine on her own, by her own free will, that she made other people's vote not count.
So sitting here today, do you believe Corrine Brown is guilty?
I don't know. I don't know.
So I asked her directly what made her change her verdicts. She told me it was a combination of things: the removal of the juror, the confusion, and the fear, because she says some were going as far as to say juror 13 could be in trouble and contempt like you heard, someone else saying maybe he could even be in jail. She said that, along with confusion over the law and the alternate juror coming in and really changing the energy and really taking over as the foreperson in effect, in her words, really mixed it all up for her. But she is certain if the original jury had stayed intact, it would have ended as a hung jury on all counts.
Lindsay, 2 points. One, the judge polled the jurors after the verdict was in, and every single one of the jurors, including juror number 3, said, yes, this is my verdict. But the other point, we rarely see what goes on inside a jury room. Usually what happens in there stays in there, and this juror is revealing a great deal about all of this. Did she say to you what evidence in the trial most influenced her concerning Brown's possible guilt or innocence?
She said that really, for her, the sticking point is there was no direct evidence. Brown's name and rather her signatures were never on any checks, and that Brown really wasn't going to the ATM, cashing any money on the same day that money was being shared around. So for her, she had trouble getting to guilty because of the lack of direct evidence. I said, were there any witnesses that really stood out to you, maybe Vaughn Alexander or Corrine Brown's testimony? And she told me no. In fact, when Brown cried the second day, a lot of them viewed him as fake tears. She felt that a lot of the testimony from the different witnesses that the government called, that a lot of them had guilty hands as well because they all got money. And perhaps the most telling for me, she told me she never really felt bad for any of the donors either, because she got the impression that it was transactional money all along and never believed the government's story that this was money to help kids. She said that argument never resonated with her either. But in the end, when she came to the guilty verdict, she said she just couldn't explain away 3 years of excess money in Brown's account.
Thank you, Lindsay. Shortly after Lindsay's interview with juror number 3, I sat down with Brown to get her reaction to the woman's allegations of unfair jury manipulation. It was just one of the questions I asked Brown in a wide-ranging interview this afternoon.
I am very upset. And I really think that if the judge had heard this information during the trial, he would have brought the jury in and would have changed maybe some of the dynamics.
What are you doing for money?
Well, I've had to, sell my beach house and use my retirement. People are beginning to come around and give me resources. But the point is, to me, when you're born, you get a birth certificate, and when you die, you're going to get a death certificate. And that dash in between is what you've done to make this a better world. And I feel very strongly that I don't want on my tombstone, felon. I've devoted 34 years of my life to service. And to have it twisted the way it's been twisted is very upsetting to me.
I think the judge told you yesterday that you could talk to reporters, but he would advise you against doing that, and yet you're sitting here talking with a reporter. Can you explain that?
Well, I've talked for all my life, so that's just who I am. He did, I come from a different system. He is the judiciary branch, and I am the legislative branch. So the legislative branch is used to talking to the media.
Are you the slightest bit worried that what you're saying in this interview could prompt the judge to give you a stiffer sentence that he might not otherwise have given?
No, I mean, I find him fair, I guess it's very difficult in this situation to, look at and weigh all of the ins and outs. And, I feel violated, I feel that way.
I also spoke with defense attorney James Smith, who told me, based on what juror 3 told Lindsay today, he plans to ask the judge to allow him to question this juror himself. He acknowledged that overturning a verdict based on what went on inside the jury room is very rare. In those cases where a new trial is granted, the judge usually has to be shown proof that outside influences contaminated the jury deliberations.